YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, we're going to try and assemble the SNRC and trying to make sense of where all the parts go. Now, the first track that I'm going to be running this on will be quite low grip even though it's carpet. So, let's get rid of the box. So I'm not going to run with the anti-roll bars just yet. So, we've got the bumper, we've got a bag with aerial straw and body clips and a bunch of extra screws. We've got one bag with 4 washers, a bunch of screws and a pinion. I think it's a 33. Then we've got a small bag and that's got 3 screws in it and a lock nut. We've got the sway bar kit, which I won't be using at the moment, and then these 2 spare inserts that go in here to drop the height for what battery you're going to be running. So I'm going to bring you in for a close-up look and see what we make of assembling this. So quick look through instructions, and I think it's going to be easier if at first we drop the bottom off of this bumper. So I'm just going to quickly remove both the outer screws because you do need to put the lock nut in the centre of this, and at the minute the foam is in the way. And I must admit these screws do fit really well. Well, I am using the MIP drivers, but they take some getting off. So let's see if we can just get that off. So the centre one is the one where we're going to be putting the lock nut, unless it's got one already fitted, because they do give you one with these 3 screws. So we have got 3 screws with a lock nut, but it does look like, at least on my kit, we've got that lock nut already in. So we're going to be fitting this to the front. So if we quickly flip that over, might not have needed to drop them out, at least on my kit. So let's get this first one in. You just want to hold it with your finger underneath at first, just to stop it spinning out. But as you can see, that's where the lock nut is. But once you've got that fitted, the foam blocks it. So if yours don't come with it and you have to use the one supplied, then it's going to be easier to pop this off. If yours has got in it, then you can just put it on. So if we flip this over, make sure your body posts locate properly, then you should be able to drop the 2 outer ones back in. And then we just need to get 2 . I'm just going to finish tightening these up by hand. And I would go through every one of these screws, just make sure they're all nipped up, because you don't want them coming undone halfway through a race. You could even drop these out and put a bit of thread lock on them, but I'm going to try them as it comes to start with. But as you can see, nearly every one of these I'm able to get around about 1/4 of a turn on them, maybe not quite that. And obviously if you buy the self-assembly kit, you won't have to do any of this, because you'll have put it all together and tightened them up to start with. And to be completely honest, I would much rather have to go through a pre-built car and tighten every one that screws down than find that there's a whole bunch of screws been over tightened and sheared off. So I'll just quickly whip through doing exactly the same on top, and then we can crack on. Right, so I've quickly ran through tightening all these up. That one is the antenna wire holder, and them three in the middle, I'll probably be undoing them to take the servo assembly out, or bracket. Curious, none of the ball joints were loose, just the gold screws, so it's definitely worth you going through checking them. But next thing we need to do is just quickly tighten up the rear body mounts. And these screws, if they don't come, they're just the standard buttonhead size for this RC, but mine came sort of partially screwed in, which is quite nice. I did check the screws for the shocks as well, and they were fully tightened up, so it's just the chassis screws that needed nipping up on mine. So next thing, I'm going to want to pop this servo saver off, or servo arm, and then we're going to need a 2mm driver to get this off, because I'm not going to be using the stock one. So for this, we're going to be using one of the Arrowmax adjustable ones, and these are crazy expensive. They're something like £20 odd in UK. So basically, you've got a fully adjustable servo arm, and it screws through, and wherever you tighten it up, you can see the length of your arm. So we'll get that just nipped up to start with, and then we can see the stock arm, so we can get a good idea of the actual distance that the stock arms are set to. So it looks like that's going to be about right, but you can use whatever servo arm you like. Just like this one, because it's black and gold like all the rest of RC. And if I look at where it actually mounts, it's not that far off. You can put spacers in it if you need to. Right, next thing we're going to do is take this servo mount out, just to make it easier for us to mount a servo. All three of them screws at the same size. So what I would do is slightly loosen off this outer one, because it does rotate, but we're going to get that. And then, so for this again, I'm going to be using one of the 9i mods, because they just seem really nice servos. And if we look at where that's going to be positioned, so this is going to need to face the outside, and you do have one flat on this. So if you spin it round to the side that's flat, let's have a look what kind of mounts we get. So it does tell you in instructions to use rubber mounts. So let's get these horrible little things shoved in. Now, although these are rubber, they are pretty damn hard. So you just want to stick them in like that. So I'll get the other 4 of them fitted. Right, so that's got its little rubber grommets in. Now it does look like it wants us to use 4 washers and 4 of these, which should work quite well with these rubber mounts. So we're going to need to get one of these and sort of screw it through the rubber mount, and then get it lined up with this bracket. So if I get that started, let's see how well it's going to line up with the opposite side. I must admit it's looking pretty close so far. And then I believe the final 2 screws in this bag should be for the motor. So we should have one more, and hopefully this lines up as well as the other 3 did. It does look like it's very close as I'm screwing it in, and yep, that's in there pretty solid and rubber mounted. So while I've got this out, let's just check See if they need tightening. Yep, just a little bit. Let's get us 3 screws back in here, and then see where his servo arm lines up. And because of where the end tightens up on this, we should be able to get to nip that up, and also should be able to get at least one of the MIP offset ball drivers in to tighten the servo on down. But first thing we're going to need to do is get a receiver of some description and just power this up and center it. So I'll get that done. Right, so we've got the servo centered, and I have managed to fit the antenna mount back in, so there is clearance once the servo's in there, which is quite nice. I'm going to use one of the tiny FGR8Bs, or 4B should I say, just because it's an enhanced receiver. And we're going to pop that in there and then bring the antenna straight up through the middle. So we've got a nice bright pink antenna straw. So we are going to be able to utilise this antenna straw. More than likely going to have to shorten this though, because I don't think I'm going to get a body shell that tall on here. Or I certainly I'm not wanting a body shell that tall on here. But we can have an antenna if we want. So let's see how close to centre we're going to get that. That is unbelievably close. Right, your choices for mounting the arm. You can either use the screw that comes with your servo, or we have got a whole bunch of screws in here. I'm not sure if any of these are going to fit, but I think just for safety's sake, and because I know they work really well, I'm going to go with the screw kit that comes with the actual servo itself. Yep, so that's the one we're going to have. So first off, we're going to want to undo the clamp screw, because you definitely don't want it trying to clamp onto your screw as you tighten it up. Yeah, we've got plenty of thread showing on that. So if we then try and line this up, that's going to be about as central as we're going to get. Like that is the position it's going to want to be in. So what I'm going to do, just so I can get it positioned perfect, so I'm going to line it up first. That's where it wants to be. Then I'm going to tighten the little pinch bolt. That doesn't work in any way at all on one of these servos. I definitely don't seem to. And that's a standard 25 tooth servo. So I would say the Arrowmax, although these are really expensive, so far this is pretty much the worst fitting servo arm that I've yet tried, which is surprising. Let's see if there's anything fouling it up. Nope, doesn't seem to be. And the grub screw sheared off. So yeah, the Arrowmax adjustable servo arm, I'd say give that a hard pass. That is total garbage. Let's just see what the stock plastic and fit's like. Yeah, that's pretty solid. So it is the 9i mod or a standard servo, and the 25 tooth Arrowmax servo arm is just utter crap. You can see it's not even pinching together when I'm tightening this grub screw up. It's not even trying, and that's just rounded out completely, and it ain't my driver. So yeah, I'd certainly avoid the Arrowmax arms, because that fitment is just garbage. But let's see if I can at least try and crush it up a bit more. Right, so other than the totally crap fitting servo arm, but what we should be able to do next is, now we know what position it needs tightening up in, we should just be able to whip these out, and we should be able to at least tighten this servo arm up to make it usable, although we are relying wholly on the screw holding it in, because the little tension screw does nothing at all. It doesn't actually, it's not strong enough to clamp the servo back up. And I must admit, of all the cheap servo arms that I bought from the likes of eBay, AliExpress, or the ones I've even got free with these 9i mod servos, I've never been in a position where it just flops about until you put the actual screw in. That Arrowmax one is an epic fail. I don't doubt that the actual servo arm itself is really strong, but there's just not enough flex in it to for one little screw to clamp it, which is unfortunate because it does look nice. And if we look at how this lines up, that can you just need to get a servo arm that allows that bit to clear the linkage as it comes over. So as it comes to full lock, it needs to not be pulling down on that servo arm, else it's going to try and pop the internal ball joint off, but it can't be too high that it hits the chassis. But to be honest, on touring cars you're not really going to be using full lock anyway. So that should get us a steering. So now we're going to need a motor. So let's get these screws tidied up and we'll find out what motor we've got for it. Right, so motor wise I'm hoping to go with this 17.5 turn Rocket RC motor. So we do have a pinion with a grub screw in it, and that will fit. So can we mount the motor? Let's see what these screws go like. Yep, so they're the right thread. So we're basically going to want to mount the motor in that kind of way, and it does look like two of the screws line up perfect. So basically you want to get the screws in position, because you've got to kind of drop these under the belt, but once these are in position we should be able to get the driver to line up straight through. And we're going to be going for the two bottom holes on this motor. So sorry that it's not the best to kind of show on camera. I've done my best to kind of show you what I'm doing. So it's basically that kind of type of affair that we're going for. So we can get us screws straight through into the motor, and then if we loosen these off just a touch, we should be able to slide the motor to get the meshing right, and hopefully we can get a pinion in there, because that's going to be a nightmare if we can't. I think we're going to have to undo these two. And then we should be able to just lift it up enough to get the pinion on, I'm hoping. Well, that's a grub screw all the way out. And there's not actually any way to get your pinion on. Try backing motor screws out. Yeah, I'd say that is not a great design for mounting motor. The fact that you've definitely got to back the motor screws all the way out to change pinion and take the screws out of the top deck. Certainly not ideal if you're looking for a timely pinion swap sort of mid-qualifying or in between your qualifying races. Looking at the design of it as well, that's really poor where the actual grub screw lines up. So you're not going to be able to tighten your grub screw up fully until you get the motor mounted. But once you get the motor mounted, you can't actually get the screw down to it. So I'm going to have to nip that pinion up sort of somewhere near, then try and get the motor mesh right. In fact, I think at this point I'm just going to give up on the motor mesh at a minute and just get the motor nipped up so I can actually tighten the pinion up and get it level with the spur gear. So that's got its pinion in, and then we can now put these two screws back in top. So although I quite like the design that you can reverse it, so you could fasten the motor from either side, you can swap the battery, you can swap which direction the servo mounts in. You can't put the pinion on the motor first because it won't fit through the side. You can't put the pinion on after because it won't fit through the side, so you've got to slide your pinion in, then slide the motor into it. Not the easiest of setups, but let's see what it's like for setting the pinion and spur gap. I like to have just ever so slight sort of movement on the pinion and spur, and then I know it's far enough in on the teeth, but it's not going to be running hot. At least when you set your pinion and spur, it does look like everything lines up perfect. But that's what we've got so far. Just a little bit awkward to get to the grub screw down past that carbon bit. You could take that off, I suppose, but just a bit of added complexity if you did want to swap the pinion gear mid sort of qualifying setup. But let's see what else we've got. Right, so for speed controller, I'm going with the Rocket 120 amp, and then looking at this, I think it's gonna probably fit better in that way, because then at least I've got enough room so I can stick that down. And then I think the cap pack I'm probably going to fasten to either the motor wires or the battery wires, and then I've got a nice run for the A, B and C to his motor. So they should run like that. A is on this side, so that'll be nice and tidy, and then I can just run the receiver wire over. And if you're not fastening your ESC in with this removable 3M lock stuff, I would definitely fasten it down. I would get your sensor wire in first. So now I've got that in place, I can stick as other piece of this 3M lock tape down. Give that a bit of a trim. Then it should be nice and easy to just add in and remove my speed controller when I need to. I can bring the sensor wire round so that can come round, plug into motor, and we just need a different battery plug because I'm not going to be using that, and we just need to get these soldered onto the motor. So I'll get these all cut to length and soldered in. So it's going to be A, B and C. So at least they'll look nice and tidy. And although my wires are going to be soldered on, I can pull the ESC and get to the sensor port easy if I need to remove that. So let's get them soldered in and see what else we've got. Right, so we've got it looking kind of neat and tidy. Kind of like these battery sort of how you adjust these. If you just undo the screws on bottom, these move in and out. You can adjust the little screws on either end, and then to pop your battery in, you just snap it into place and make sure these are pulled up on end on battery, and it does seem to hold it pretty good. So let's get this connected. And these are what seems like the thickest power cables I have ever seen on any of my RCs, even the 6S vehicles. But we've got the Rocket 120 amp ESC censored motor as Flysky receiver and the 9i mod servo, and the Arrowmax arm is on. But we haven't used that little locking nut that it gave us. We've got the front bumper on as batteries fitted. So if we power this up, and you can see the Rocket does do blinky mode because we've got both turbo and boost, everything set to 0, so it shouldn't try and boost or anything, and it does blink. But as servo, I have had to set nothing at all, didn't even need to set the endpoints. So with the throw measured on that, so it clears in both directions. The endpoints on this servo for this car are absolutely perfect, which is nice. Also looks like they've done a cracking job of assembling it, and it looks pretty straight. The ESC is set for the correct direction, so as we start accelerating, and we've got it set to forward and brake only. If you want to calibrate this ESC, you just turn it on with the button held down. In fact, while we're doing it, I might as well show you. So if you do want to calibrate this ESC, turn it on, keep the button held. It'll beep. Leave your controller alone. Press it once. Then go full throttle. Press it once. Full reverse. Press it once, and then you'll get back to the blue flashing light. So yeah, overall, quite impressed with this. I think one more thing that I've got time to do tonight. Let's quieten down the Pro. So I have got a fan that I can fit if the motor starts running too warm, but I'm going to keep an eye on the motor temps and see how we go. It is nice that this RC does come with the fan mount, so it's just 2 little screws that you need to undo there. While we're playing about with it, we might as well have a quick look, see if the little Rocket fan fits. It should do. So the fan is just a Rocket RC, and they are quite nice little fans, these. This bracket can hold bigger or smaller fans. So basically, you just line that up. So if it's a bigger fan, it'll fit on the 2 outer ones, these smaller fans, the 2 inner ones. So you're going to have to hunt around for a set of screws that are going to be long enough for you. And let's have a look. Is that going to sit right flush with the bottom? Pretty much looks like it. But are we going to sit out far enough? No. So one thing that you're going to have to consider is where you bring the power cable out. So it's just a case of fasten your fan to your mount. So once you've got the fan mounted, Should then just be able to fasten the fan mount back on the actual chassis. Then all we're going to need to do is get his cable tidy, then find somewhere to plug it in, and then you've got a cooling fan on your motor, making a hell of a racket. And as you can see, as soon as it sees the transmitter, you'll get sort of a purpley coloured light, but as soon as you power the transceiver on, as soon as you power your transmitter on, you get blue blinky mode. So it's going to be interesting to give this one a run. I think the last thing we can do is get the tyres and wheels on it. So I think as long as these fit right, we're going to be going with the Schumacher wheels and tyres. And I believe these are the Contact 30s. So let's quickly get all these tightened up. And this servo should be nice and snappy. And let's turn that off, of course it's making a right racket. So let's wrap this one up. So there you have it. That is the SNRC. I think this one is the R3 Pro. Doesn't actually feel that heavy. Be interesting to get this on scales. It does sit quite nice. You've got fully adjustable droop. The reason I'm going to try and run these batteries is because I generally run these in my 8th scale, but I've not got much time basically to use the 8th scales, so I'd like to get these cycling. And 8,000 milliamp, I should get a couple of races out of each one, which would be really nice, because then I've got 4 of these, so if I take all 4, I've got the option of a fresh battery for each race, or I've got plenty of batteries for a bit of sort of test time, bit of run time in between eats, if I get a chance. And also means I don't have to carry the charger around with me. Be really nice if I can get it to a stage where I can run these and get them down to sort of storage charge in a race. That'd come in really handy, or 2 races, then I won't even have to storage charge them when I get home. But yeah, it does sit quite nice. Really like sort of, even the layout of it is nice. Not sure if this pinion's going to be big enough for it, but we'll have to try it on track and then see. I have got a bunch of other ones that I can swap it out for. I think this one was the 33 tooth pinion. But yeah, belt tension seems fine, nothing snagging. Seems nice and free. The suspension seems really nice. No issues with the wheels binding up, so you can use any of your standard sort of wheels. And I think all I'm going to do is get it on the setup station and then obviously find some kind of shell for it. But hopefully you like this kind of video, find it useful, informative, entertaining, or you just like killing a bit of time listening to my incessant ramblings. But thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. Hopefully you'll like and subscribe, turn the notifications on, or share to any friends and family or anything. And hopefully I can give you some updates on this one soon. But catch you guys again in the next one.